He had worked in construction using a software for construction workers, to being the pre-sales guy who teaches, talks about, troubleshoots, and sells the said software. There are many ways to get into pre-sales, and this is one way that this guy was able to go from a non-technical, non-software industry into a software industry. All it came down to was having subject matter expertise. In this episode, we talk about what got him to jump into pre-sales, how he establishes rapport with customers, what made him successful, and advice to those who are new or considering the field. Listen to this interview with myself, Tony Moze, and Sean Schofield, solution engineer at Procore, to find out.
The Tony Moze Podcast.
Welcome to the Tony Moze Show, where aspiring professionals learn about the pre- and post-sales world. My guest today is Sean Schofield. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely, Tony. Thanks for having me. It's nice to connect with you again.
Indeed. Yeah, we've spoken before, but hearing some of the tidbits and of course seeing your trajectory is just super inspiring. And so I wanted to bring that into light for those who are considering this field and profession. So Sean, if you can please, in just a few sentences, tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a senior solutions engineer at Procore, which is a construction tech company. I've been in the pre-sales role for about 4 years. Before that, I actually came from the client side. I came from the industry, not even knowing what this was or that this was out there, but very much enjoying the space that I'm in and being able to help evangelize technology to an industry that is very much in need.
And so you studied architecture at Catholic University. So during that time, while you were in the midst of your studies, did you ever think you'd be in a pre-sales or a solutions engineering role?
Oh, absolutely not. I didn't even know what that was. That wasn't something that was even talked about. I loved the design side because there was a lot of problem solving. I thought there was a lot of opportunity to help people really shape the way that people live. Architecture design can directly influence the way that people feel when they walk into a space. That's always captivated me. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that that would lead into the tech space and sales of all places.
Yeah, that's, it's where you are today. I mean, obviously now you're like, okay, it makes sense. But like just even starting back there, that's cool. So like, as far as, you have a nice backstory that adds to what you do today. You co-founded the hot chocolate soup runs in 2007 to 2008, and you won the Campus Movie Fest Best Drama Award for a short film. If you could let people know, what were those, hot chocolate soup runs and Best Drama Awards about?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Catholic University, we were really big into outreach. And so there had been, they called them homeless food runs, where we would actually pre-prepare meals and bring them out to the homeless out throughout Washington, D.C. Except that had there was a season for that. And as it got colder, that kind of fell off. And so me and a couple of my friends saw an opportunity to say, hey, this is such a great experience, being able to help people and outreach and just interact with people so far outside of our typical comfort zone, that we saw an opportunity. So the hot chocolate, the hot soup was something that was very much in need and very appreciative from that community, which was a lot of fun. And I can look back now and I can, again, starting to connect the dots, but never knew where that would lead me. As far as the Best Drama Award, that was a Campus Movie Fest is an organization that actually provides film equipment to students and gives you a week to film a short film. And a couple of friends and I saw a great opportunity to, again, try something a little bit different. I think that's kind of the theme with these, is kind of stepping outside of my comfort zone, trying something different and finding out that not only can it be fun, but we could be successful just kind of by putting ourselves out there.
I'm hearing, the characteristics already, like community, people, putting yourself out there. Like, it's puzzle pieces that if people are considering, they can see how their puzzle pieces are fitting, and you're right there is just already, they're on the table, man, and you're starting to lay them together. So you currently work at a company called Procore Technologies. Now, if you were to tell someone who is non-technical, like say a family member or a construction worker, what does Procore do?
Yeah, so construction is a cloud-based construction project management platform. Now, what that really means is we've taken all of the different processes and tools for construction. That's things like drawings or blueprints, as people might know it, SMIDLs, RFIs, change and cost management. We've really just put that into one place and allowed our tools to communicate with an open source. We have an open API that allows us to integrate with outside systems as well. The easiest analogy for people to understand is your iPhone. Your iPhone came in and you had a contact list, you had a digital camera, you had a cell phone with text messaging, you had maps. The iPhone put it together and allowed it to talk, and then also had that app store where you could bring in external influences into that experience. So it's a great analogy for what Procore has been able to do.
Awesome. And if you're sitting at the dinner table and talking to family, you're talking to, maybe you're at a barbecue and you're just talking to these people who are like, I have no clue what is this area, what would you tell family or friends what you do? Like, what is a solutions engineer? What does that mean? How could you say that to someone like a grandparent or something? Yeah, if you were to speak it in that way.
Yeah, I love that analogy. That a great presentation skill that I actually learned in architecture school was explain things like you're explaining them to your grandparents. So I love that, Tony. Perfect, nailed it. Solutions is the key piece here. I'm trying to solve problems. I have to understand what our customers, what our clients, our prospects are actually going through, and then trying to understand where their pain is and ultimately what value our tools can provide, and trying to make sure that we're not trying to fit square pegs into round holes, but the tools that we're going to provide are going to fit for them, address the pain that they have, and provide a greater value to their process and their daily lives.
Awesome. When you were at, and I believe this was it, BR Freeze and Associates.
Correct. Yep.
What was that one thing or a series of things that made you say, you know what? I'm going to jump from the project management to the solutions engineering role?
It was actually the evaluation process of Procore. So I was the young gun in the office. I was the tech savvy guy, and I was tasked with maintaining what was happening within the industry. And so I looked at a number of different solutions, what I now look at and call point solutions because I've been in tech for that long. But looking up and saying, hey, there's an opportunity here, and finding the technology, bringing it in-house, seeing the impact it had on the rest of the company and the people that we brought into the system, it just completely changed the way that I saw technology, and especially in construction. And that's kind of when that light bulb went off and I said, this is something that I can get behind. There was an energy behind the people at Procore and what they wanted to do. And it's core to our mission statement, which is to better the lives of everyone in construction. And I felt that.
I'm going to be, look, I was looking at the YouTube from Procore's YouTube channel, and I'm just like, oh my God, the way they put this video together, and the CEO himself, like, he has a mission. His why is super strong. It got me very emotional too. It almost reminded me of another video I saw with some guy in California trying to run for mayor. And he was talking about, I know this city, I grew up and blah, blah, blah. This CEO, of Procore, like the way he explained things was just like, oh my God, like I feel his mission. And though I'm not in construction, I want to be part of it. So I feel you on that. I'm thinking, so just going back to this again, just to clarify, you were using Procore at your previous company?
Correct. So I was the one that found it, evaluated it, then had to bring it to some of the decision makers, the executive team, present it to them. I had to help champion it and sell it internally. And then once we pulled that trigger, I was then charged with driving that implementation to make sure that my baby was now successful, because I'd really kind of put my neck on the line there. So after doing all of that, I realized how much that really drove me and my passion. And I was luckily enough to be able to jump at an opportunity to do that at a wider breadth.
Wow. So, I mean, they talk about this, you're doing a lot of things are aligning right now. And it's reminding me of things of what I've heard before. Like, you're at this new company now, you're a solutions engineer, but, you worked, people have told me, like, if you're a customer of that company that you were, that you're going to be working for, like, that's another shoe in to a company. Because they're like, look, you played around with it. You got to really see how it works on a customer's end. You know how to speak the customer's talk. You know all these things left and right. And not to mention, you worked for a construction company, so it wasn't like you just decided you want to play around this software just because you're just tire kicking. No, you needed to actually implement it in the company you worked at before. That's working for that specific market of people. So like you're working in construction, you're using Procore's core software. It only makes sense why Procore brought you onto the team. So
awesome. I feel like I'm still in construction. I think that's the best part about what I do is I talk shop all day long.
Wow.
I don't have a technical background. I don't know how to code. I'm not doing any of the back end architecture. I have to know about those stuff to answer questions, but I'm not doing any of that. A lot of the value that I bring is that I'm not a tech guy. I'm not a sales guy. I'm you. I walked in your shoes, and that story is so incredibly powerful. You can feel the impact of that story just change the attitude of a room. Sitting in on-sites, you've got your big gruff executives, and you tell your story, and they, oh, hey, you're one of us, and it just completely shifts the balance of the conversation. So anybody that's thinking about where can they go, think about what you have exposure to, and capitalize on your current experiences. That's always my advice.
Yeah. The definition of sales, pre-sales, of course, one of my mentors, Ramsey Marjabov, We the Sales Engineers, a podcast, he said on a show, he said, hey, a lot of people associate car salesmen with sales, right? But you redefined it. And I think that is the truth. And I believe when you redefine it, you now embody a new persona. You go out at it at a different way. Because initially sales, I'm thinking, okay, wham, bam, thank you, man. I sold something to you. I don't want anything to deal with you anymore. On to the next customer. But when you said, I am you, that's just, oh man, that again is just, it speaks volumes. That's awesome. So going back, just to reiterate, were you a software engineer?
No.
Do you have to know software engineering?
No.
This is some of the myths I just had to reinforce that just so people know. And just like the characteristics that you said that like, hey, I'm one of you guys. I'm here to help you, and help solve your business problems. So this is cool.
Yeah, what we have found really successful at Procore is we've capitalized on the industry experts, right? We can kind of teach people processes and sales techniques, but a day in the life is something that you can learn, but to have those stories, and really it's the passion. And that's also what I tell people is when you find that passion, that makes you personable. It makes people want to listen to you, want to buy from you. It's not, hey, I'm trying to make a quick buck. And I think that's what our role as these kind of pre-sales engineers is so unique because we are not the contract guys. I'm not here, trying to worry about my quota or anything like that. For me, it's about providing the best solution and experience to our customers.
Yeah. I was going to say, have you ever felt, I don't know if maybe it's a feeling, maybe this could even be a personal anecdote that you're consciously aware of, but have you noticed that whenever you can, speak with a customer that, what am I trying to say? That if you got too technical in the weeds versus being more humanistic, like, the ratio, like because there's some people out there that like, I know everything technical, but they lack in the whole human process. the humanistic process. Do you feel that if you jumped way over into the technical side, you had lost your customers, whether that you lost them emotionally, intellectually, or whatever, versus when you handle it on a more humanistic side?
Definitely. Especially within the construction industry, you've got these are multi-generational companies. This is my grandfather built this. My father did this. We've been doing it like this for 30 or 40 years. Why do I need to change, right? These are not folks that are always on the forefront of technology and sometimes really resistant to it. So the second you come out talking technical pieces, you've already lost your customer. We benefit a lot from also understanding their language. How do they speak? And that's where I really love what I do, because it's discovery. It's just something that you're going to learn a lot about in this role and in pre-sales, is doing discovery, understanding how they think and what they focus on. Using their language is the easiest way to resonate.
Wow. Great. Great gems of advice. So I was hearing on the Procore YouTube how some of the construction workers were dealing with the Procore software, and one had mentioned cloud. I mean, that's kind of interesting to hear from someone who's, in a sense, not in the software industry. How about this? How often do you deal with clients who know more software technical stuff than you or your team?
To be honest, a lot of it varies by the client size, the sophistication. We work with some national or international contractors that have technology departments. They have chief technology officers. People like myself who, instead of jumping to Procore, followed the construction technology side within that business or firm. We also work with the mom and pop shops who are working out of the back of a truck. And if they wouldn't know technology if you threw a cell phone at them. So it is this really interesting crossroad, having to deal with that. Does it happen? It absolutely happens. But I'd say it more often than not, we are able to kind of control the conversation and how deep or how technical we need to go.
Okay. So because I was going to ask, what is a way of dealing with that, and what would be response? Do you rebuttal? Do you still find yourself having to speak software tech or technical with them? But I kind of believe you answered it a little bit earlier, talking about how you have to speak the jargon, speak their talk shop with them, really show the human side to then maybe be able to delve into the more technical stuff. That's interesting.
If I have to know it, I've had to learn certain things like what an open API is, and there's certain tech terms and infrastructure and security requirements is really big in construction. Now, I happen to have some individuals on my team that specialize in that. So they not only help educate us that come from the industry and don't know the tech, but we can pull them into a conversation if we need to get deeper, something that's over my head. But the way that I see it is, if I'm really good at what I do, I just keep asking the questions. I flip it back to them, get them to open up. Why is that important? What value does that have to you? And I, more often than not, can avoid getting sucked into the weeds there.
And side thought, would Procore run off of AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure?
AWS.
Nice. Cool. Makes sense. Awesome.
Yeah. Which is a fun conversation, because to your point, we have had people say, well, I don't want my stuff on the cloud. I don't want to support Amazon. And you kind of look up and go, look, let's have a larger conversation here, because if there's a lack of trust within Procore, the cloud, or AWS, you have to understand the infrastructure that our society is built on right now. And that is where I think there's a certain level of disconnect. You think about government system, banking systems, they're all using these technologies. And if you have a concern about Procore or the cloud as a whole, that's not really something that we're going to control or influence. That's a larger conversation. And I've been lucky enough to be able to coach people around that, which is pretty good, feel good moment.
That's awesome.
But it's not always a win, and it's an uphill battle sometimes.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I believe from what I've researched, that you are inspired by highly influential people, from Adam Grant to Richard Branson to Ariana Huffington and Microsoft's Satya Nadella. Besides these individuals, who else are you inspired by, and who would be the personas you'd like to embody in your next positions?
Ooh, that is a great question. There's a lot of the pre-sales folks that you'll hear. Peter Cohen, Chris White has. I've actually stolen one of his analogies. It's actually helped me build a personal brand. And for those that don't know Chris White, he's got the 6 Habits of Highly Effective Sales Engineers, a great book. I highly, highly recommend it. And he talks about an analogy focused on discovery about the shovel, right? The person who wants to buy a shovel doesn't want to buy a shovel, right? They want to dig a hole. They don't want to dig a hole. They want to plant a tree or build a fence. And really what they're looking for is privacy. So we really need to focus on who we're talking to and what they're driving towards, not what the questions they're asking or what they're looking for. If I'm only trying to sell them the shiniest shovel that I've got, there is a missed opportunity. And those are the things that I'm looking at and saying, there's more to this. And so I actually have a personal passion for this discovery aspect that I'm trying to almost build my own role around and reshaping the way that pre-sales works as a whole. I think there's a lot of opportunity where we get stuck on features and functions and how can I close the deal quicker? And if we can, my favorite demos are the ones where I don't even show the product. The fewer clicks that I have, the better the demo that I'm running, because I'm really changing the conversation and making it about them and their problems and what value our tools can provide.
That's awesome. So customer inquiries, any customer who inquires about something, there's levels to this.
Correct.
That's awesome. So last time you and I talked, you mentioned something about being human with customers. We talked about humor too, but like, when did you first learn about establishing rapport?
It took a little while. And I think that's kind of why I have such a focus on this. Was you come in, you're showing off all of the function of the tool. Maybe you're clicking a couple too many times. You feel good. You've showed them everything you can. You got them to say, wow, and that's so cool. And then they wouldn't buy. Like, okay, I'm missing something here. And when I realized that I could, shift the balance of the conversation, like I meant with my intro, with my story, hey, I'm one of you. When I could get them to open up about themselves, about their business, about the type of work that they did, all of a sudden they were talking to me like a person versus the person that was trying to sell them something.
That's great. And they, John Kerr talks about the idea of being the trusted advisor. Like people like, there's the salesperson who like, yep, I know you're trying to just get this deal and make your quota, but then there's the trusted advisor. And that would be you, and people look, well, they'll say, you know what, I know I'm talking to your AE right now, but I'm going to call you just to ask you because I know you're going to give me, you're going to be transparent, you're going to at least, you're going to be the one that's going to, tell me it truthfully, so yeah, that's good.
One of my favorite things to say on a demo is no. Do you do this or can you do? No, because when I say no, when I stopped becoming the yes man, all of a sudden people trusted me. I realized that no, a certain question, responding no isn't going to kill a deal. Oftentimes people just want to understand what box your system or your solution fits in. And they have to know that by understanding what those boundaries are. When you clearly dictate those boundaries, you set the right expectations, they're going to trust with the other things that you're saying yes to.
Yeah, it's awesome. Last time we also talked briefly about how you're all about putting in some humor into your talks with clients. 3-part question, I believe. Yeah, 3-part. The first one is, who would you say inspires you to be funny or humorous? 2, who, what, where have you learned about establishing rapport? I think we got through that. And if you're dealing with an uptight or pushy account executive, what have you done to ease the tension and put customers at ease with humor or rapport? So going back to the first thing, who would you say inspires you to be funny?
My father. I get my humor from my father. It's something that I Was fortunate enough to work with him. So he worked at the construction firm that I came from, and seeing the way that he could command a room or really disarm a room with his humor, it showed a certain level of intellect that wasn't intimidating, and it disarms everybody else in the room. Everybody relaxes. You get a little bit of a laugh, you get a smirk, and you can feel the defenses just disappear. So absolutely, my father is the one who inspires my humor and my attitude, and how that is ultimately tied into building the rapport was really just being able to sit back and watch him do it and command a room.
And if you're dealing with an uptight or pushy account executive on a customer call, he or she is like giving that aura of, I need you to talk to this prospect now. But the prospect's not necessarily that interested in you, your company, or what your solution is serving. They'll get in on the call like almost like forcefully because, you look at the whole idea of the business development rep or sales development rep scheduling them in because they may have answered one or two quick questions, but they're like, okay, fine, you got me on a call. I'll come see what the hell this is. But they're just like, arms are still crossed. And I'm like, I'm not really that interested right now. Like, what have you done? I guess I will edit this out if this does sound redundant, but what have you done to ease the tension and put customers at ease with humor or rapport? Like, how about a specific situation? What have you done? Like, what was a specific situation where you were able to ease that tension and put customer at ease?
There's a couple of things I like to use as early as possible. Having a camera on, if I can see that maybe they don't have their camera on, I can't read that body language, but you're not getting the engagement. You're getting very short responses. I'll give my intro and then say, hey, when we jump in, you don't want to look at my ugly mug. Nobody wants to see that. I've tortured you enough, and I'll turn the video off there. And sometimes it gets a chuckle, sometimes it doesn't. I've also been on plenty of calls where people, shut up and show me what you got. Or, hey, why are you here today? I'm here so your team would stop calling me. You're like, okay, well, that is a great place to start, and I'll try to find something sarcastic, self-deprecating humor. I find has really been the most beneficial. I have no problem making fun of myself, and I can go out of my way to make jokes, whether it's about the things that I have in my background and the unfortunate necessity I have of being a New York Giants fan these days. That alone can get a laugh. Oh, I need somebody get me a paper bag to put over this guy. There's a lot of different ways that I'm trying to make it not about the product, not about the client, but I try to make it about myself.
Do you happen to have any stand-up comics that you find funny, or are you into that?
I am. A couple off the top of my head. That's hard. Going back and I may be dating myself a little bit. Mitch Hedberg is still somebody I look up to incredibly. His observational humor, I think, is next to that of only maybe Rodney Dangerfield. The way that he could just look at something and just immediately dissect it with a sentence is something that I look at and say, man, if I could do that on a call, because I do think that's a big piece, is being concise. You don't want to lose a client in a long story. You don't want to lose them with a long intro or a long joke. But if you can come up with these quick little hitters, and they will often build up. Dad jokes are also a great one. So if you've got any books or just really, really bad humor, being in construction, I'll make jokes about something being the foundation of a process. And I'm sorry for the humor. I'm sorry for the dad jokes, and I'll apologize for it just so that they know that I'm aware of how cheesy or how lame it sounds.
That's awesome. Going back to the hot chocolate, soup run and best drama award for short film. If you were to think creatively, thus far, all these experiences, the puzzle pieces connecting, how did each one of these experiences help you to be successful in your role as a solutions engineer today?
Community. I think I hit on that before, and being able to step outside of my comfort zone. But I think most importantly is my desire to be a part and tell a story. I think is really what has helped shaped a lot of what I've done to be successful and how I approach the role. And I think when I think about the story, it's not my story. It's not Procore's story. It's the client story. And how can I be a part of that? And how can I help shape that? And I think between the outreach that we had with the hot chocolate and hot soup runs, being able to try to understand what it was that the homeless people were going through, the hardships, the mental health issues that they would deal with. Sometimes it was the lack of family, and sometimes it was just them being comfortable. That was one of the biggest revelations that I had when dealing with that was some of these people, they have opportunities. They had family that would reach out, but they were comfortable. And people struggle to get out of their comfort zone. And so that really made an impact on me saying, I can only help people so far. But if I can make sure that I'm not locking myself in a box by remaining inside my comfort zone, that's going to help set me up for success. And that's how I can learn about their story and how I can be a part of building and shaping my own while helping them shape theirs.
Awesome. What is other than that, what is the advice you'd give to someone who is trying to get their way into a solutions engineering role? They're just making that start.
Couple of things. Pick up a couple of books, right? We talked a little bit about that. I'm a big fan of the Pre-Sales Collective. It's where you and I were able to connect. And I know that James Kakis is great. Usually, I've actually had the benefit of meeting and chatting with both of them. They're just great guys and so knowledgeable. And find something, like I said before, that you have a passion for. Find something that maybe you've used and understand kind of what their process is. I think that's the easiest foot in the door for a non-technical person is going to be following your passion and following your experience. You may be looking for a career shift. It doesn't mean that you can't utilize what you have just put your heart and soul into, those blood, sweat, and tears for whatever you've been doing over the last couple of years, decades, even to use that to your advantage as a launching off point.
So with, let's say my use case, I came from working in behavioral health. That was my career. I did research, but I worked primarily with patients. Would you say perhaps I can be in pre-sales or I could find a solutions engineering role for a behavioral tech company?
Absolutely, right? There's plenty of mental health apps out there these days. There's a lot focused on self-care, and you are an expert in that. Use your expertise, use your experience, and that's going to help elevate you beyond the people who just know how to code, and not to diminish the people who do what I will never be able to do, but it's a different attitude. It's a different approach, and that passion, that experience, it's about building that connection, and that's going to be really help you set yourself up for success.
Awesome. 3 personal things. I mean, and if you could answer, it would be kind of like a quick fire round thing, but what was the last interesting book you read?
I am in the process of reading The Social Sales Engineer by Patrick Pisang, I believe is how you pronounce his name. So I'm enjoying that. That's a little bit different. Again, putting me outside of my comfort zone and trying to, how can I use my voice to get wider and create an influence? So that's something I definitely recommend. Also, Naked Sales is a great, like 90-page book, something you can easily read on a flight or within a couple of hours. And that's a lot about putting yourself in the shoes of a customer. So that's another recommendation there.
Awesome. And what is like your favorite hobby?
I'm a dad. I am a young dad. So I have a toddler. I've got a 2-year-old, and my wife is expecting our second on January 1st. So it takes a lot of my time, but it's also really cool to see how I can influence and impact her and what she picks up. And she's just so smart. So that's takes a lot of my time. And unfortunately, football, but mixed feelings these days.
Well, congratulations on the baby. Yeah. And then if you were to look maybe at your next life or even previous life, what other part of tech would you have worked in, department wise or industry wise?
Ooh, that's a really good one. Other departments. At this point, maybe sales enablement. As I mentioned before, I've kind of found this passion within the discovery process, up-leveling individuals around me. I've been running some internal programs at Procore to help AEs with better discovery, help with newer SEs, who, like myself, have never done this before, didn't know that this was a role. So how can we teach them what it is to really be a pre-sales engineer? So the enablement side is something and coaching is something that I've debated with.
And lastly, where can people find or contact you?
LinkedIn is obviously going to be the easy one, Sean Schofield. And Pre-Sales Collective, I'm very active. I love that they've got their, the Slack program that I can integrate into my work Slack. So it's something that I try to be very active and very conscious of. And it's a great place to have a quick little chat and say hello.
Sean Schofield, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Audience, if you liked this show, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment below what part of the show you found the most interesting. Thank you, everyone, and take care.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, everyone.